When I was growing up, I was always looking at sort of the regal black woman for some reason. That kind of woman. I remember when the first time I went to the Metropolitan Opera House, and this black woman walked in with her husband, and she was wearing this like gorgeous brown leather suit, like brown skirt, brown jacket, brown gloves, hair snatched back, and I was just like, yes, diva, chocolate diva. So I always gravitated to women that were a little bit more sort of regal, the Kathleen Battles of the world. So. My arrival moment, I think I've had sort of two of them. The first one was one night I showed up after a performance, and we all went to this party, and we had to dress up. And I didn't know anything about nightclubs or anything, and so we all went to the costume department at Juilliard, and they dressed us all up. And we all got to this club, and this was back in the day when they used to pick you to go into the club. And the door guy, this like hyper blonde guy, was just like, you! And I was like, what? And it's like, who are you with? And I was like, all these people. So we all went in, and just on the way I was looked, some guy came up to me who I thought was Boy George at the time, but I was so naive, I didn't realize it was a costume party. He was like, oh my God, you look great. You want to work here? And that's when I started working at the Roxy with Lee Chappell. And then my second aha moment was the first time I ever sang an aria in drag as Shequida. Because I remember Lee used to always say, why don't you sing in drag? You're an opera singer. I was like, nobody wants to hear a black opera singer singing a black drag queen singing opera. And so I remember that one time I did it, and the room was completely silent. I don't think anyone had ever heard that, and I was like, oh shit, I just ruined my drag career. And then everyone screamed, and they loved it so much I had to sing the same song 3 times, because I didn't plan on ever doing it again. So I had the one track. And ever since then I just started traveling as Shequida, the opera singer. I think there's obviously a lot of music that a lot of people are like, oh my God. When I think of great musicians, I think of Gladys Knight, Nina Simone. Obviously, there's tons of singers in the opera realm, and of course, you have newer young singers who sort of emulate that sense of, as a singer, I like people that can actually sing. Jill Scott, Erykah Badu. Lauryn Hill before she went crazy. Those are my kind of singers. There's another singer, she's a British singer named Desiree. So I like that kind of vocal. But then of course, now I have to say, after I heard Beyonce sing Halo live with no instruments in a hospital and sounded better than a recording, I was like, all right, this bitch, she can sing. In terms of artists, I think there are definitely a couple that really sort of influence, I think, Shequida and influenced my style. Definitely Halston. I think the first time I saw the Halston stuff, I was like, wow, flowy and gorgeous and drapery and and that he always used like these gorgeous black women, so I could really relate to that. Halston was one of my big go-to when I'm designing for Shequida, definitely. I grew up kind of knowing artists like Chagall and Matisse, and they were always out of my realm. They were like people that I didn't think I could ever touch, and then actually going to see the Chagall paintings hanging in the center, in the front of the Metropolitan Opera House. To me, I was just like, oh, it's here. I didn't realize it's so, because you grow up and you see all this stuff and you're just like, oh my goodness, that's like from the 1800s, and you're just like, no, queen, he painted it last week. When I was about 13 or 14, my teacher was like, you need to study classical music because you have such a big voice. And so I started studying opera, and then I went to see this opera called Mephistopheles at the New York City Opera at the time, rest in peace. And it blew my mind. I was like, what? This is amazing. And so when young people always say, well, I want to get into opera, or which opera should I see? There's a type of opera called verismo, which means like real, it's the real story, like real people's stories, kind of like the it's kind of like the reality TV of the day, because the beginning of operas, it was about like gods and kings and all this like stories of crazy things, and then they started writing about real people and real love and dramas. And so there's the Verismo operas. Puccini is a he wrote La Boheme. You must see La Boheme, Butterfly. For the first time opera goer, if you ever get a chance and you want to go see something easy and light, is Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci. They usually play these operas together because they're only about 45 minutes each. Gorgeous, I know. As opposed to Wagner, which is 6 hours for the first act. I would say go to see those operas. Any Puccini opera, I mean, those are really great sort of, stepping off points to go into the classical world. I would probably, I would say Larry Kramer. Just the fact that he has been fighting and still fighting. I think he's in his 80s and just still so like vocal and smart, and everything he's done for the gay community, and put up, basically gave up his life, his writing, the books he's written. I would say if you want to hear the truth, you want to hear some realness, you want to hear how it was, I would say Larry Kramer. Is that too depressing?
I love music, and if anything's influenced me in my life, it's always been music. I've always been led throughout my life by music, no matter what emotional state I was in.